Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unit 3, Lesson 2, connection types. We're going to be talking about connection types. This will fall under wires and wireless from the last unit. So, yeah, hopefully y'all watch the last lesson, the 5 components of the internet. This is going to be very important. We're going to be digging into each component in this series. But in this lesson, we're going to be looking at wires and wireless and connection types. Yeah, so after this lesson, you will be able to identify the 3 connection types: copper cables, fiber optic, and wireless, obviously. And then you will be what method they use to send bits over. And you'll identify the issues with each type of connection. Now, first connection, we obviously have these old copper wires. Now, copper wires are really sensitive to the effects of nature and what goes on in nature, and so they're really sensitive. But here are some examples of some copper wires. Pretty sure y'all have seen these before. Now, copper wires. So a Category 5 cable, or a Cat 5 label, Cat 5 cable. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Is a type of copper wire with twisted pairs in the cable, and it's designed for use in computer networks. These are Ethernet cables, if you've seen any of them, which we'll look into more in detail in future lessons. But if you were to look inside the cable, you would find 4 twisted pairs of copper wires. Twisted pairs of cables send data through the network by transmitting pulses of electricity that represent binary data. Copper wires really use electricity to send information through the cable, pulses of electricity, on electricity for 1 and electricity for 0. And they're susceptible to the environment, which will be important later on. The second type of cable we're going to be looking at is fiber optic cable. Now, a fiber optic cable, optic is like light, like optical, if you've ever looked at light. So a fiber optic cable is a light cable. And so it transmits light, right? This is an example of a fiber optic cable. And there's a group of people installing some fiber optic cables. And then there's some ways we can break down fiber optic cables. So, fiber optic cables. Fiber optic cables contain an optical fiber that carry light instead of electricity. So light. Now, the speed of light is really fast. So these are much, much faster and can carry way more data than typical copper cables, right? The fiber is coated with layers of plastic, shrouded in a protective tube to protect it from the environment. And fiber optic cables are capable of transmitting much more data per second than copper cables. They're typically used to connect networks over oceans. So as we look into connecting India and England, obviously. And so they're used to connect cables over oceans. Now, the last bit of connection type is obviously wireless. Now, you definitely know what wireless is and kind of how it works, because you've experienced it, right? You're probably using a wireless cell phone at the moment. Now, obviously, wireless connections don't involve any wiring at all, at least at first, right? So there's a wireless card inside the computer that turns binary data into radio waves. So remember, copper cables carry electricity, fiber optic cables carry light, and wireless carry radio waves. Now, and transmits them through the air. Now, there's a problem with wireless, is that radio waves only go about 75 to 100 feet in a place like an office building with a lot of obstacles and things in the way. But when you have larger open fields, they can go for like 1,000 feet before getting lost in an open field. And then they have to be picked up by a wireless access point. And here are some pictures of wireless access points. They effectively pick up radio signals and turn them back into binary data, which we will then use for our communications. Yeah, so the wireless is really annoying because it seems like it would be really cool, but it's really slow sometimes. Okay, here's a comparison type. Comparison chart. Okay, so we're looking at types. So wireless, obviously, is the type we just talked about. It sends radio signals about a distance of 100 feet, right? And then, obviously, some of its issues are it's slower in reality. And you can see the bandwidth there, which bandwidth we will talk about in the next lesson. So don't worry too much about that number, but you can see that a wireless connection has a bit more bandwidth than a copper connection and a whole lot less bandwidth than a fiber optic connection. But that's kind of irrelevant. And so the distance that a wireless connection can go is about 100 feet in like an office building because of obstacles. But it can go way more if you have an open field, but you're not really going to ever have open fields. So real issue is that it's slower in reality as compared to the other two. So then you have twisted pair copper cables. These are the Cat5 cables. They carry electricity, and they can go a longer distance, 330 feet, but we sacrifice a bit of bandwidth or a bit of speed there when we go extra feet. And they're susceptible to interference from nature, right? Like, because copper electrons get moved around quite a bit. Now you have like fiber optic cables. These carry light, and these can go for like 50 miles before they have to hit somewhere. 50 miles, which is quite a lot of distance. And they have a whole lot of bandwidth, like 26 terabytes. It's quite a lot more than wireless and copper wire combined. But the issue with these is that they're really, really expensive and really hard to pay for. And so you have nation states that will pay for them to travel, to put them across the oceans. And they're mostly used for transmitting things over oceans. And conclusion. So we've covered the 3 major types of connections. So please pause the video and answer what are the 3 major connection types. What does fiber optic cables carry? Or what does a fiber optic cable carry? Sorry. What is the issue with wireless? And then obviously, so pause the video. Obviously, the 3 major connection types are copper cables that carry electricity, fiber optic cables that carry light, and wireless, which carries radio signals. And yeah. So what does a fiber optic cable carry? We just said it. It carries light. It carries light. And then what is a major issue with wireless is that it can't go very far. It can only go about 100 feet. And then it has to be received by a wireless access point, which we looked at in the previous slide. And the quick parts to remember are copper wires, fiber optic cables, and wireless. Those are the 3 connection types. And these fall under the first ingredient of the internet, which you can look into what the other 5 ingredients are if you watched the last class. Yeah. Thank you all for watching. This is Lesson 2, Unit 3. Hope I did better this time. And, yeah, have a wonderful day. And be sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment, and subscribe. Thank you.